talk about states of matter. Now, I just want to know, have any of y'all had a cup of ice, left it on the kitchen table, and just walked away? Randomly came back and noticed that the ice turned into water. Now, why is that? That is what we're going to talk about. How did the solid turn into a liquid? So it is solid, liquid, and gas. First, since we started off with ice, we're going to start off with the solid. Ice is solid. It's hard, it's structured, it has its own form, independently, on its own. And inside, we can see the tiny little particles that are clumped up together holding that form of ice. If the ice had an actual shape besides the square, the cube, it would be something else. Maybe you've seen it, not just cubed, but long, oval, different types of ice. And they can actually be into different shapes. Why is this? Because it's a solid. Solid is its own structure, and it has little particles inside that hold it together. It's like a team. Each team holds onto each other and maintains their ground. After that, you add a little bit of heat. Heat means just by letting it melt or not adding any coldness to it, boiling it, or adding anything hot to it. So what happens when we have ice, a solid, and we want to change it into, and we want to add just a little bit, of heat, which is melting. So right here, we have a little bit of heat, red, and what do you know? The solid turns into a liquid. Now, liquid is basically the water. The water that came from the ice. It melted into its liquid form. Now, it's still water. It's just the stage of it changed. And with that said, the particles are loose. The particles say, I can do this, I'm resting, I don't need to be clumped up anymore. So they're very relaxed, per se. And that's why whenever you have a cup of water, and it has a form because it's taken by the cup. And if you actually dump it into another cup, it takes the same form because it takes the shape of whatever's holding it. These tiny particles are just going with the flow. Okay? So when we add more heat to liquid, you say you're boiling water for macaroni, for spaghetti, for anything that you add heat to. So we add a red arrow. This red arrow means more heat, or in other words, it's going to evaporate. Liquid, when it's added by more heat, it will evaporate, or the liquid will turn into a gas. The liquid will turn into gas. Gas, there are a lot of things that are around you that can be gas. The greatest common one that everybody knows, and I know you know as well, are clouds. Clouds are just a mass of gas. You can look up and you see the clouds. Now, how are the particles in the gas acting? Are they working as a team, like the solid? Or are they just relaxing, like the liquid? Actually, the particles in the gas are very, very spread out. They are not touching each other. They're spread out everywhere. That is why the gas doesn't have a structure. It's just the particles are going everywhere. we melt the solid, which turns into a liquid. After the liquid, we add more heat, and the liquid will evaporate to gas, which the particles go from loose or relaxed to not touching each other. They're spread out. Just like whenever you're asleep and you're just all balled up, the first thing you do when you wake up is you stretch. That's what the particles are doing in the gas stage. So you're asking me, can all this be reversed? Is there a way to reverse the effects? Yes, there is. One way you can reverse the effects of a gas and a liquid is by adding cold. Since you add heat to make it to turn from solid liquid to gas, you add coldness to gas, which will turn into liquid. This process is called condensation. You may have seen it in water bottles or Coke bottles or anything that liquid that's in a bottle. For example, you leave the bottled water in the car, and the little specks on top of it is condensation, because it went into a gas form and it started going back into its liquid form when you add coldness to it. This process is called condensation, from a gas to a liquid. Now, how can we turn the liquid into a solid again? It's still water, but is it possible? Yes, it is. It's possible to go from a liquid to a solid. All you do is add more cold, which is called freezing. You get your water, you get your soda, you get anything, put it in the freezer, and it will come out super cold, freezing, frozen. This way, the particles are back to being come together. Let's do this one more time. Let's do the cold process one more time. Gas. The particles in the gas are very spread out. They're very spread out, like, I don't want to touch anybody, don't touch me, don't touch me. Once you add condensation, or you do the process of condensation, it turns into a liquid. So they're more relaxed. So they take the shape of anything. Like, okay, you know what? It's not that bad being with you. So that's why we go from one cup to another, again, because it holds a shape. And when you want to freeze it, it goes into a solid. Now, the freezing part is where the particles clump up together and do teamwork again. They decide to work together to keep your structure and to keep independently together. They're on their own. It's something hard, something that you can't really maneuver because it is a solid. So let's try that again one more time. Solid particles are steady, strong. Particles are the very little things that are in there. The very little, really tiny, teeny things you can barely see with your eye are held together. And when you melt them, those little tiny particles relax. They go with the flow. So if you have a tall glass of water and you want to put it into a smaller glass, it takes the form of it. If it's a tall glass, skinny, and you want a big round mug, it goes big. You add more heat to the liquid. You evaporate. This process is called evaporation, where the teeny particles spread out. Teeny tiny particles spread out. After that, process of condensation, which turns back into a liquid, where they are in the relaxed stage again. One more time, you add coldness one more time, and it turns into a solid. Okay? Boys and girls, this was the states of matter of how to go from a solid to a liquid to a gas and convert them back into each stage. Thank you. Have a nice day.